Well, welcome to another episode of Letters to Tim. We receive so many letters of people asking me to respond to questions about what they're going through. And so we decided to film some of these. We got permission from the people to do this. And we've got responses that say that people are being helped by this. So we decided to do some more. And so today I want to respond to a letter from Ivey. So it goes like this. Dear Tim, I've been married for 15 years, and for most of that time, I would say I was happy. A few years ago, my husband shared his honest views about many of the things I believe and value, and I realized I had been blind to some significant differences between us. I think I assumed he would change or mature over time, and when that didn't happen, it shook me more than I expected. I began to feel unprotected, not because he's unkind, but because he doesn't think or respond like a protector in the ways that matter most to me. I lost heart when I realized that what I thought was faith and hope might have actually been wishful thinking. After COVID and the strain and losses it created in my extended family relationships, something in me broke. I now struggle to find a reason to keep trying the way I once did. I relate deeply to what you share about burnout and complex trauma, but I don't know where to begin applying it to my life. We have 5 children, and I can still feel content and grounded in my role as a mother. But as a wife, I feel depleted and disconnected. For many years, my husband allowed me to believe he was someone he wasn't, mostly to keep the peace and avoid conflict. That went on for over a decade. Now I'm grieving how wrong I was and how much of myself I built around assumptions that weren't true. I don't want to destroy our life together. He is genuinely kind and we have built a stable, good life. But I've lost interest in him emotionally, and I feel confused and shamed about that. I want to grow, reframe, and mature rather than give up. But I don't know how to reconcile the loss of hope with the reality in front of me. My question is this: how do I recalibrate after realizing my hopes were built on something that wasn't real? And how do I move toward contentment and clarity without ignoring my own grief or resentment? Wow. Those are good questions. I would say that most of the people in adult life that come to us for help come to us because their relationships are breaking down. So they developed in childhood ways of surviving that they got validated for, that looked like they were working. But once they get into adult life and get into relationships, at first everything appears really good. But after time, cracks start happening. And before long, there's some major issues start to happen and the relationship is in trouble. And so usually what happens is that people come to us and they want us to tell them how to fix the relationship. And what I want people to know up front is this: you have to start by fixing yourself. Both of you have deep issues that are causing the problem, and the danger is to want to work on the symptoms. We have to get to the root issues, and both parties have to be willing to do that if this relationship has a chance of healing and success. If both aren't willing to do that, you can still have a relationship, but it will not be the deeply satisfying, intimate relationship you long for. It might be stable. You might just get along and go through the motions, but it will not be the satisfying relationship. So you start by working individually on your issues. They work on their issues, and then you move to working on the damage that's been done in the relationship. So picture 3 sets of baggage. You have your baggage, they have their baggage, and then there's been baggage created within the relationship. You start by working on your baggage. If they work on their baggage, then eventually you can get to the third set of baggage, and that is healing the relationship. So please understand that. I think that as you work on yourself and you begin to heal your trauma and you begin to become self-aware of the layers of shame and all of the deeper issues, that is going to help you so much. And so again, I would encourage you to consider taking a course like our Lift course to really say, this is my time to work on fixing me, cleaning up my side of the street and understanding the dynamics of what's been happening in this relationship for years. So having said that, let me just see if I can paint a picture of what I see in your marriage. What I see in your marriage is what sadly happens in most marriages today, where people do not understand or work on their deep levels of shame and childhood trauma. You end up with marriages made up of two people who are fawners, two people who have anxious attachment issues or avoidant attachment issues. And so, again, we've done talks on that if you want to listen to those. But what happens in a marriage where two fawners is we need to get along. We need to have a good marriage without fights, with few fights. We need to be doing lots of stuff as a family where we're happy, where we're doing fun things together. So the emphasis is on the outcome, that we have to have this smooth, peaceful, fun home. But nobody knows the right tools to achieve that because of their own issues. And so what do? You then try to achieve that outcome through another pathway. And that is, let's sweep everything under the carpet. Let's peace at any price. Let's deny problems are happening. Let's not talk about it. Let's lie about stuff. Let's say what you want to hear. Let's have a secret life. Let's not reveal the whole truth about what's going on deep inside of me, because I might be really struggling. And so that's what happens. So you're becoming what the other person wants. You're being fake. You're conforming. You're denying. You're sweeping stuff under the carpet, not talking about it. You're keeping secrets. But it looks like it's working because it's keeping the peace. And then you just focus on, let's have fun. Let's laugh. Let's do stuff together. Until the day all the truth starts to come out. You spot a lie. There's evidence that points to a different conclusion than you've been making. You can no longer sweep stuff under the carpet. You feel betrayed. You feel lied to. And all of a sudden, your respect for the other person goes. You can't trust them anymore. You have anger towards them, resentment towards them, and that's all normal. But you've been part of that. And so let me say that another way. What happens when two fawners get together is everything will stay great as long as we don't get too real. So we will develop a fake kind of intimacy called fun, called joking together, called playing, doing some stuff together. But nobody's going to get totally vulnerable, totally open. We're going to spend our energy making sure the other person's happy, taking care of the other person, but not talking about problems, not talking about our core issues, not talking about our needs, our disappointment. We don't want to rock the boat, and we just want to create a feeling that we're close because we do stuff together and we connect occasionally at a superficial level. But there's not the depth of true intimacy that comes from vulnerability and being open and honest about all topics. So that is what happens for many. So that's what's going to have to change. Now I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. There's another piece here that I'm sensing, and that is we want our partner to be safe. That is important. We can't have a relationship with a person who's not safe. We can't connect with a person who's not safe. But the danger is to think that our partner must also protect us all the time. From the perspective of looking at it as a child needs their parent to be their umbrella protector because a child can't protect themselves. So they're fully dependent on the other person to protect them. Sadly, what's happened in patriarchal societies is many people go into marriage saying the man's role is to protect the woman. The woman can't protect herself. The woman is weak. And so she needs the man to protect her. And so men walk around and go, I'm the protector in this relationship. I really think that's rather a dangerous way to look at things. The woman, she can learn to protect herself. She needs to learn to protect herself. Yes, the man needs to be safe, and the man can provide some protection in certain circumstances, but the woman needs to learn to provide protection for herself. She must be a safe person to herself. She must learn to provide safety emotionally for herself by setting boundaries. She must learn to set boundaries in unhealthy relationships to protect herself. That's her responsibility. So get away from that role definition stuff, because I think that is going to cause you some problems. The next thing I just want to speak to is what comes out of these fawning relationships where there's kind of been a mask that says the image is we have a very good relationship. The reality is there's no deep intimacy or vulnerability, is because of all the secrets and the denial and sweeping under the carpet and lying and not talking about things. Once the truth comes out, betrayal is the powerful wound that comes out of that. Betrayal, we've again done talks on that, but what I see in you is, okay, this person I thought was my soulmate, but now if I'm looking at it honestly, they're not even a close friend because I can't even trust them. They've not been emotionally available and intimate. They're more a casual friend, even maybe an acquaintance. So all of a sudden you got to rethink, this husband who should be my soulmate is actually only a casual friend. We live in the same house. We know lots about each other, but we don't know the core of each other. We don't communicate at that level. And so there's an adjustment of boundaries that happens after betrayal that goes, I'm not getting rid of you, but I'm putting you back to a casual place until I am convinced that you're capable of being totally open and vulnerable, until I'm convinced that you are a safe person that I can connect with, that we will talk about things, that we will work through problems and conflict, that we are both working on ourselves and our issues. So if I begin to see that happening, then I will gradually let you back to a close friend and a soulmate. But for now, I have to treat you as if you're a casual friend, and that means there's going to be boundaries. Now, many people fuel setting that boundary from anger and resentment. That initially might be what they need to do to kind of have the courage to set those boundaries, but that isn't a good long-term solution. You have to get to a point where you understand why you're setting this boundary, and that hopefully it's not a permanent boundary, but that it's temporary. It will gradually move to a closer relationship if certain conditions are met. So just be aware that in overcoming betrayal, your resetting a boundary to a casual friend, and then there's a long process that you have to go through before you're going to move that boundary. So let's say that both of you have worked on yourself, are going to work on yourself, and you both start to heal your shame. You both start to deal with your underlying issues and trauma issues. And now you're ready to start working on the relationship. Part of that process is going to be changing your relationship style so that you're no longer two people who are fawning. So what that means after 15 years, it's going to be a radical shift in dynamics in the marriage to sitting down every day and maybe for 5 minutes, authentically share what you're feeling emotionally, how you're feeling about what's going on in your life, about the relationship, being honest about your emotions, being honest about your struggles. Just start to learn to do that. That is going to be key. Now, at first, you may need to do this with a therapist because you might trigger each other too much if you start sharing honestly. But that becomes important. Secondly, with that, you have to be authentic with yourself. You have to be able to connect with yourself and say, what am I feeling? What is my gut saying? What is my body saying? And it's not just having an academic conversation with yourself or with another person. It's first connecting with yourself at a deep level and then learning how to communicate with somebody else at a deep level and connect with them at a deep level so that you're not fawning. Then when it comes to fixing a marriage, I'm so hesitant to say anything else because there are so many factors that are involved in a relationship. And so I don't want to get into trying to give advice here because I would need to explore this relationship, the history, the years, the wounds, all of the different survival tactics, the attachment styles, on and on before I would really be able to give advice. But again, in our lift course, you would get all of that teaching and all of that awareness that would begin to develop so that you would begin to understand your relationship dynamics so that when you began working on that third set of baggage from your relationship, you would have a much clearer picture of what needs to be looked at. So let me just end by saying this. The danger for many people when they have been betrayed and hurt and they realize that much of their relationship was a sham, it was an image, there wasn't a deep connection and authenticity and intimacy there, is that you go to hurt, you go to anger, and you should, and you need to be able to express that, and you need to explore that. But then what happens for many people, and they don't realize, is now your nervous system is in survival mode, and it wants to protect you. And if your husband actually might be a safe person, it doesn't believe that because it's now feeling very hurt. And so what does it want to do? It wants to close its heart. It wants to have a resentment. It wants to shut down. It wants to stop talking. It wants to hurt them. It wants to cut that person off, not communicate with them, because those were the survival tools they had as a child. And so what happens now is when you feel, wow, I've been betrayed, your nervous system wants to harden your heart, have a resentment, get angry, cut them off, not communicate. It wants to use the old survival tools. If your husband is changing and is willing to work on themselves, then you have to be able to say, okay, whoa, he's proving to be safe. I don't need those old survival tools. I need to get to my cortex brain and say, what would be healthy tools where we can learn to communicate, where we can learn to be open and vulnerable, where we can start the process of getting to know each other deeply, of working through problems, of working through conflict, of learning how to tell each other what we're feeling and what we need. That's where you begin to move. And that, there's a lot to learn there, but it's really, really important. So I would begin by just an open, honest talk with your husband. Tell him what you're learning about yourself, not jump to accusing and judging, but tell him what you're learning. Tell him what you're sensing has happened in the relationship, how it's affected you. Tell him that you are willing to look at yourself and you want to learn what your part is and really begin to heal and fix that up. But then ask, are you willing to look at your part, that the things that might have contributed to some of the stuff going on in our relationship? I think a talk like that, that's non-judgmental, that's just exploring to understand where you're both at, what you're both wanting in the relationship, what you're both willing to do, is so important. And if you find that you're willing to work on your stuff and change, but they're saying, nope, it's all your fault, nope, I'm not going to be willing to change, that's going to push you to another set of decisions. Am I willing to just have a casual relationship with this person for the rest of my life and never experience true intimacy? Or am I willing to accept that or not accept that? That becomes the question then that you would have to face. So bottom line, I think you're going to need help to work through this stuff. Make sure it's a skilled therapist that understands trauma, that doesn't just bring a bias around men roles, women roles. Find a therapist that can help you work on the deeper issues of shame and trauma. And then understand that even if your husband is willing to change and you're willing to change, this is a slow, gradual, messy process. You do not patch up 15 years overnight. This is going to take a lot of work and quite a bit of time. But if both are willing to do it, it is definitely worth it. So thank you again for your question. I hope it helps. And for those who are listening, I hope it gives you some helpful tools as well. If it did, please like, subscribe, share, make a comment. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.